Well, I'll tell you what, 5 minutes and then we'll rotate back if we still have time.
All right. I attended the meeting in Manistee and I talked about how I felt and how I feel about the elders going down on 28. And we have to change doctors, and I'm just reviewing this because that's what I got up to talk about. So what I feel is that I came here to Manistee and I gave you a problem that we are having in our area. So I decided that I would follow through with, I have some options to that. Do we agree that we are all Native Americans, right? And I need to understand, what are the outlying areas? What is the outlying area? When I hear all the outlying area, from where? Can anybody tell me? Thank you. Just tell me, what is the outlying area?
Well, when I hear that word, I think of places like Raxton, Detour. Those places that are like the furthest outside the radius of our service areas.
Oh, okay. Now, again, I would really like to thank Denise for putting this article in. She did a wonderful job, and so did Darcy's follow-up. And it pretty much said what our problems are. So I'm going to be really fast, talk as fast as I can. I came up with two options. All the money that's available for the quote outlying areas except the Sioux, you take anybody that cannot get down those roads, cannot get to a doctor, that's usually, and sometimes as Bonnie has said, we don't have enough of doctors, we don't have enough dentists, but with the money that you don't have, take us all to the traditional way, is take us all to the Sioux where the dentists, doctors, pharmacies, where everything is. Take us and put us up there. Take care of us all winter long, and then spring's here and we can start driving again if we have good cars. That was my first option, and I thought it was pretty great because it's pretty traditional. Go where we can be served. This might not take very much longer. So I thought, well, okay, that's one solution. What's another solution? And I thought, how about the medical mobile clinic? I went online, I talked with a man that is in the medical mobile clinics on wheels to buy. And I asked him for information. I do not know anything about yards, how big they are. But I have one that's a 35 mobile clinic. I have a 37 mobile medical clinic. I have one for podiatry. They have them for dentists. They can have them for anything. We could have them traveling around instead of us traveling around. We could open up avenues for people who can't. Bonnie, last time, I'll say the meeting I was at in Manistee, when I talked to her, she said, it's much better to go and pick up your meds where your doctor is. I pick up my meds in Marquette. What do we have in Marquette? About a 5-hour open window to go and get them, 1 day a week. And if it storms, they're not there. We need more. We need more in Munising. Oh, what about I went to Manistee to get my teeth cleaned? 1.5-hour drive, good weather, by myself. Oh, there's no dentist, Judy. I said, well, who's gonna check my teeth? I'll just clean them and whatever. Point being, I'm up here talking to you. I'm talking about all of us in the outlying areas. And if you took the money that you're investing in trying to get doctors, put the doctors on the buses, put the dentists on on the mobiles. Put them out there. Everything is available. You can choose, you can pick. They have floor plans, how many examination offices, how many. Then I also printed off, I have to tell you, I do not have a lot of time when I am doing anything, and so when I come up with an idea, I try to get as much as I can. And I didn't go out very far, just went and talked to this young man named Jeff. He was fantastic. And he will talk to any of you. It will take 6 months to get something up and running. I brought about what it would cost. He sent me cost factors on it for the dentists, for the doctors. So that's my thought. If you bring in a problem, bring in a solution the next time. I didn't get it. I'm grateful that it was acknowledged at all. So we need more. We need more people on the road, but not us. You put these mobiles out there, and it storms. I mean, I realize there's pros, there's cons, but the same token by the same token, you brought that mobile over to Marquette twice a month, and we had a doctor. Do you realize how many people would not have to go down that 28?
Okay.
Get stuck, whatever. Again, I'm taking very good care of myself. But there are so many who can't, and that is who you are responsible for. All of you are responsible for those who cannot do what they need to have done.
Okay. So, Bonnie, I don't know if you want to say something. The issue is a lot more complicated because we can't just tell doctors or dentists they have to do it. You have to recruit the people that would be willing to do it and be that part of their job. And
Bonnie, I'm going to give you all this.
That's what I was going to ask
Oh,
for.
wonderful.
Just for your information so I can look into it.
You can.
Where I work in San Diego County, they had a mobile van. The problem with that is as the van ages, you're responsible for then the upkeep and the constant changing. So I don't know what the cost is, but I know the county's not doing it because of the cost.
But Bonnie, again, we have doctors that we're paying for not getting. No matter how much you pay them, they don't want to live in this area.
right.
That's
When you put this out to some doctors, they don't mind doing this.
Right.
Or dentists don't
So
get it.
I'll wrap up with, and you can get back on the thing if you want to come back if there are no, and
No,
there
I
probably.
I can, but I think I've covered it. But
Okay, because there will probably be plenty of time, but we have to rotate. But the Health Access Committee did discuss this. When did we meet? We just met, and we did talk about defining a new classification of doctors that potentially could do this. So we have talked about it.
Great, and I'm glad you have. This is
Right.
important. This is an open window to do something for those who are out of that area. Or do my first option, bring us all there to Sault Ste. Marie and take care of us while we get our health care.
Okay.
I know. but it's
Catherine?
I just want to speak to it just to clarify the record that when the ad hoc committee was first
Why is it so loud in here?
formulated, yeah, something's picking up.
No, it is. It's really loud.
We know, I think we all recognize that access to care is the biggest challenge. It's not feasible to have a fully built sticks and mortar health facility in all of the 20 communities that constitute our service area. So access to it is, we've always known that, but I just wanted you to know that we looked into it. It seemed to me there might have been some issues with IHS, what they were willing to, what they could work with as far as funding it goes. So, but I just wanted you to know that this has been something that we've looked at before, at least through the ad hoc committee, and gotten some staff feedback.
You can look at it that we've got to get busy and take care of us while we're still alive. We're dying.
Okay, Dr. Reinhardt. I love saying that. Doctor. Herr Dr. Reinhardt.
Now I shall present. Okay, so I passed out a flyer about the protest going on at the bridge on September 6th, September 7th.
You're starting to look like Jerry Lewis.
Am I? I can't act like that. I could have made millions of dollars. Then we would have no problem. So if you have any questions about the protests, what's going on those days, I'm here to answer them. If not, I'll just kind of ramble on for a bit. So you have a question?
There is, yes.
Oh, I know of quite a few individual tribal members who have already committed to going individually on their own. Some are our staff, some are board members, some are just our neighbors and friends and relatives. But I did kind of wonder if we were going to have a tribal contingent there, sanctioned, maybe holding a flag. That is, I can't see why that wouldn't. We've already got a resolution in to shut it down, so it falls within our formal position as a tribe. I don't know if that's feasible.
Excellent question.
I mean, we got a lot of people that I know will be there.
I'm not either, actually. I'm not either. People have asked me for contributions, and I don't have a budget, so the board would have to make a decision.
So right now,
Just your feet on the ground there would be good.
I know.
And a sponsorship budget.
I know.
And I got a flag.
well, I'll
So,
tell you,
it's worth our
right
effort.
now, they're really looking for speakers, especially official speakers, if anyone can truly go to represent the Sioux tribe. They do have tribal chairperson from Saginaw, Chippewa coming, Little Traverse Bay again, sending their chair, I think. So anything we can get officially is really going to help out.
Big media.
And I think they're doing these speakers on the south side after we do the thing on the north side at 9:06 a.m., which is also a response to this Michigan Mining Day proposal by Casperson. And so that's the reason we're doing
Southwest
that.
corner.
On the south side, we're planning on starting the flotilla at 11 a.m. or thereabouts, and they're planning on having speakers before that. And so if you're able to get down there and officially represent, or just come by yourself and bring food, bring whatever, kayaks or canoes, pontoons, whatever. Join the flotilla, or just bring your banners and signs. Come to the north side, wave your banners and signs, bring shakers, hand drums. Do what you will. I'm going to be bringing the tribal education staff and my hand drums and shakers. We'll have the Nishmishkak drum there from Scott Wisely. And so we're planning on having a good protest on both sides. And some folks are wondering why a protest on both sides. We had originally planned to have a protest on the north side. Janann Cornstalk was going to have a flotilla later on. She was going to do that on the day of the bridge walk.
What is a flotilla?
It's where a bunch of people get in their canoes and kayaks and they get on the water and they wave banners and signs and hope the media comes there and takes pictures.
Did you see those pictures of what they
Who's
did in
Comstock?
Seattle?
The Seattle flotilla for the
She's
arts.
from Little Traverse. She's easily been probably the loudest voice on these issues.
Yeah, she's doing great. And this is one of Janann's first times out of the chute with a protest movement like this, so she's doing great, I'm considering. But the reason why we're having them both that same day is because the Coast Guard and the Bridge Authority said that she could not do anything on the 7th during the bridge walk. And so now we're moving both to the 6th. And that's okay because now we can have both the Upper Peninsula and the Lower Peninsula joined in together. Plus we'll have people on land and on the water. So it's actually kind of a really good thing if you think about it. Not meant to detract one from the other. So I think it's going to turn out well, but it really would be nice to have tribal flags there. And any traditional flag carriers, Eagle Scout carriers, it'd be really cool to have anybody there, just to support. And if you can't make it there, pray for us, and do social media because it's really important. The things that are going on, whether it's the Greymont mining situation or the stuff going on over here with the Eagle mine and the road they're trying to push through, or the Line 5 that's
Fish
on
farming.
the bridge.
Fish farming that the state's trying to push.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on. The state of Michigan is being very irresponsible, and it's very in line with big business and not very environmentally minded.
So, Dr. Reinhardt, I will try to see if I can commit. I have to be in Washington, D.C. the next morning, which I've done it before.
I'll call Barack and tell him if you'll
And so if I can do it, I will on probably on Labor Day,
Okay.
possibly on Labor Day. And I have attended these before. I know I'm getting beat up on the media sites, but when it was 20 degrees out, I walked with Marty. So a lot of people say, some of us do.
Yep.
So.
What I did, I sent 100 T-shirts down. Janann Cornstalk was looking for donations for T-shirts. She wanted 200 of them. I sent out of my own pocket 100 of them. So if anyone else is so inclined, they still need about 100 white T-shirts, either large, extra large, or 2X. If the drum groups show up, they need 3X.
All right, thank you. They're just drummer larges.
Yeah, drum large.
Yeah. Okay. Dolores. Dolores Levesque. Where is she? Oh,
Coming.
and then, I don't know, this is... Jacobis Anankwe. Somebody used their Ojibwe name from Gwyn. Oh, okay, after Dolores. Yeah, okay.
I'm here tonight just to support Rita and what is going on with our tribe, our board of directors. I've known Rita, like I said last time I had spoken to this board of director group, about 30-some years. And I can understand what a good person she is and what our Unit 5, Munising and Marquette feel about her. We are backing her 100%. And so I just realized that you folks tonight have your mind made up on what you're going to do about the situation, about the removal of her. However, I would just ask you to stop and think a minute about your own lives. If we could just sit and go by, and with each one of you that is sitting on the board, also the people that are in the audience, we have all at one time or another done things that we are probably regrettable at this time. But with Rita, our Unit 5, like I said, are backing her up, and I've been around this Sioux tribe since I've been just a teenager. And I can honestly say that this is the biggest witch hunt in the history of this tribe, and it almost makes you sorry that you belong to it, because there's just no let up. It's just like you're after blood, and I do believe that is really what you're after. I am requesting a paper, and I ask you, do you have a copy at all?
We don't have an extra copy, but I did look, and the last time the removal code was revised was 2004.
Well, we're hearing that it's 2007, 2008, and what I read last time is still stated that those 100 petitions should be from that unit, and that's plain black and white. Now, I don't know how you folks are trying to interpret that or change, but I would like to have that copy myself, if I may. Does anybody have a printer tonight around here?
I don't think we do.
Point of information. I have a point of. I guess I'm not understanding. John's in here, isn't he?
Yes, I have.
I'm not. Okay, you're saying that you think that there was an amendment made that.
That's what we're hearing.
Okay, and let's just stop right there. So there hasn't been an amendment made.
Okay, but I understand that Mr. McKelvey at the advisory board for one did say that there's been an amendment, that there's been a change. And it was 2008, I believe. Where was that
I think that was
information
a
coming
recall
from?
when they changed the number of signatures had to be on.
We don't have recall.
We don't recall.
This is not recall.
Are you talking about the draft constitution?
It was a draft constitution, but what I talked about was the procedures that takes place, the 100 signatures, and it was done 2004 or 5 after you became chair.
You're talking about the number of
The
signatures?
number of signatures.
The number of
10%.
signatures was in 2004, and it's for calculating how many signatures you need.
Yep.
So that says that it's from the previous election, it has to be 10% or 100, whichever is
Or.
more?
Or.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
And
So-
it said in that unit. Now, what? can
That's
you
for calculating-
understand?
that's for calculating how many
That is what I'm reading in
signatures
the
you need.
paper that I have seen.
But that's what I want. I want to make sure that everybody is up, because if there is, I want to be clear too. John or Aaron, could you
John, I think you should look.
exact factual information? Because the way it's understood right now from my position and all of the other removals that we've ever had, because they were all given to us last week, and every single removal that was submitted had signatures from every unit. So if there's something different, I do need to know that.
So I wasn't here, and I'm glad I wasn't here, because all of the witch hunt stuff that happened to me was what they were looking at, and there hasn't been any removal petitions other than the one that was submitted against Catherine, or two, that, and those ones were not limited to the unit.
Yes.
I don't know where that's coming from, but it's not in the removal code. I don't believe it's ever been in the removal code.
Well, it was 2007.
Come from 16-106.
If you look at 16106, it says a registrar shall review the petition and tribal voters registered records under.
So there was an amendment, oh, I'm sorry.
If you look at 16106, it says under the standards, what standards? Election standards. If you look at the elections code standards, it says eligible voter. You're eligible to vote. Correct. It says for tribal elections.
Yeah, all right, so Kim gave this to me. If the accused official is a member of the board of directors, the petition must be signed by a number of eligible voters equal to or greater than 100 or 10% of the votes cast in the unit in the last election, whichever is greater. Now, that doesn't say they have to be from that unit. You could interpret it that way, but it doesn't say that. And
Why would they say it?
Why would
Because-
Why didn't anyone bring this
The
up last
reason-
year?
The reason why it was said that way is because the board had determined when they passed this that 100 signatures was not enough. And in some units, it might be enough. But in larger units, 100 signatures is not enough. So this is how the board figured to count how many signatures relevant to the unit. So like for unit 2, that's a very small unit. Unit 4 is a very small unit. And so it should take more signatures to remove somebody from a big unit than it should from a small unit. That's what this section intended to do. 100 signatures are 10%, and the way you count it is from that previous election in that unit. This doesn't at all say that the votes had to be, the signatures had to come from that unit. It doesn't say that.
I was just seeing the word saying in that unit, and to me, that's black and white.
Okay.
Otherwise, we may as well throw the Constitution out, we're not following it.
It's
Could you give me an
that's
explanation?
that's an interpretation because the
So
law.
all right, so here's the thing, and I've been arguing for a separation of powers and a real court system that could make this determination, and guess what? We don't have that. So it's gonna be left up to these people to interpret that. So you can make the argument all you want, somebody else can make a different argument, but it's gonna be up to politicians to make a judicial decision about what that language actually
Exactly,
says.
and on those petitions, I've gone through them, and there is not one vote from Munising. We're all behind Rita and Marquette. Not one petition has been signed out of our Unit 5. That goes to show you where we're standing. And I said before, this is the biggest witch hunt that I've known of since I was a teenager.
Okay, is that the current list?
John, is John going?
John,
If you want me to.
sure.
A couple of things. So the term eligible voter is defined in the statute as any enrolled member of the tribe who is 18 years of age or older and who is registered to vote in accordance with the tribal election ordinance. So it's a defined term. The other problem we have is that the code has a specific provision about how you challenge the signatures. Section 16.108 says that the accused official shall have the right to challenge the signatures on the petition, but any challenge to the sufficiency, authenticity, or validity of the signatures on the petition shall be made by motion, and that's to the hearing officer further down in the process. And that was Mr. Green's opinion as well, in the written opinion that he provided to you. But in the end, I concur with what you said, Mr. Chairperson, that ultimately this board will have the responsibility to vote tonight on whether or not there's probable cause. You do not have the power to remove a member of the board. The decision that you have under the code is a very limited one to determine whether there's an initial level or initial showing of sufficient cause to warrant initiating the process, which would require selection of a hearing officer and a hearing panel, and actual removal decisions are made by that person. The accused has the right to file motions in front of the hearing officer to challenge the signatures. The accused will also have the opportunity to make the argument that the offense, even if it is an offense as defined in the code and in the Constitution, The code allows the accused to make the argument that the offense does not warrant removal. But the code is structured such that that decision doesn't come to this body. This body is supposed to merely make sort of this preliminary call as to whether there's enough probable cause to warrant moving forward with the process. The actual decision making by design is imposed on an independent outside body to take the politicians out of it, quite frankly. So, but in the end, tonight's decision, I mean, there is such a thing as jury nullification, and this board has the power by its vote to determine whether it goes forward, and you vote aye or nay.
Okay, Lana, then Darcy, then
No,
EJ.
no, I just wanted to hear John's.
Darcy?
Thank you.
To Dolores, this is actually what was said at those meeting minutes from Denny. It says 2007, 2008, the rules were rewritten. Final decision made by 3 judges. If Rita had resigned when first accused, she would have been eligible to run an advisory election to replace her. The removal code calls for 100 signatures from members in any unit. So that is what was.
That's what I did say that. And if a person would have resigned prior to ever this happened, and happened with Mike, and he was told if he'd resign, he could have ran, because the new code states that you can only be removed for something that happened under this term. Okay?
What was stated was it was 2004, you said the changes.
I thought it was 2008 because it was changed.
I think,
That was my question, what changes in the
I
election
think,
code?
so somebody pointed out, I don't know where it was, but there was a change in 2007. It's not in the legislative history for some reason, but that one does what?
2007 says that you cannot stop a removal
Once it
even
starts.
once it starts. You can't, once you
it starts.
resign, when a removal starts, it continues to go on. Not that I'm.
That's probably a Darren payment issue.
Yeah, that was a Denny.
No, I did that.
Denny did that.
No,
That's why
I didn't
I
do
knew it was
that,
there.
but.
So what, if it was done before, you know,
It's documented clear.
that's why I said if the person resigned, they could run. And that's a fact. But that was in 2007, right?
EJ,
John, what do you want to go? I was just listening to what you just said, so I just wrote it down. So you said, you're reading the definitions. Eligible voter is registered voter per 16103, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they're synonymous then. In this code, the definition of eligible voter is the same as registered voter, right?
Eligible voter, meaning, no, it's not. Eligible voter is separately defined here, separate from the election.
I'm saying, in this code though, it's a registered voter, right?
Any enrolled member of the tribe.
It says who is registered voter in accordance with the tribal election rules, right?
Yes.
So it's a registered, so the reason I asked that is because then I wrote it down here and I looked at 105, and I wrote, if the accused official is a member of the board of directors, the petition must be signed by a number of, and I changed the word eligible to registered voters, equal to or greater than 100 of the votes cast in that unit in the last election.
Yes.
Well, that means to me what? Registered voters in that unit.
No, well, you are,
I was using this definition, that's why I wrote it down.
so all I can say, sir, is that the position that has
That's
been
why-
taken, the position that has been taken in every removal proceeding that I'm aware of in the past, certainly 2 years ago,
Right.
excuse me, certainly 2 years ago, was that that language you just read describes the number of signatures required, not the qualification of the person. The term eligible voter specifically says any tribal member who is 18 years of age and who is registered to vote. It does not require,
But that's not what the
does
definition
not require
says.
that you reside in a particular unit. You are free to disagree with that opinion. It would be a change from past practice.
Oh, I understand that, but I was just going based on the definition you just gave me, that's why I wrote it down.
Right, and the individual, should this go forward, the individual certainly would be free to make that argument to the hearing officer.
Well, well, as soon as you said it, I said, whoa, and I wrote it down.
so for the purposes of assuming, all right, so ultimately, if there's a disagreement on language on legislation, because we have not conferred any authority to our courts to hear any of this, it's up to you all to decide. So you're making the case, and if a majority agrees with you or disagrees with you, it's up. That's the fault with our system, is because politicians are making judicial decisions, and I don't think it's appropriate, but that's where we are. That's the system we have.
The system you used.
The one thing that I can't get past is, and somebody handed this to me and underlined it because I can't reconcile it, is that it says the registrar shall review the petition and number of registered tribal voter registration records under standards and procedures utilized for the verification of signatures for nominating petitions for tribal election conducted under Tribal Code Chapter 10. So this is again one of the errant payment provisions that the election code put in because of me, because I submitted 1,000 signatures in 2008 to run for chairman. They didn't like having to go through and verify all the signatures, so they changed the code to now say that you have to use your tribal ID number. And so how does this not include the tribal ID number on the petitions?
All of the lawyers that have looked at it at this point concluded that those provisions do not apply. If you look at that section,
Let him finish.
if you look at that section of the election code, not only does it impose that requirement, it imposes a lot of requirements, including the requirement that the election committee provide the petition form. So the election process is very different. The tribe itself, the election committee, designs the petition form. It's a much more directed process, and there are a lot more petitions coming in all at once. So when a candidate fills out petitions or circulates petitions, they're using a form that is designed by the tribe that has a column on it that has all of those required information laid out. That is not the case in the removal process. In the removal process, the board, in its wisdom, when it adopted this process, basically left all of the responsibility for the entire process on the shoulders of whatever tribal member steps up and pursues the process. So we don't think that, our belief is that there was not an intent to import all of those requirements into this process, since we don't provide the election form, and therefore there is no form that lists all of the information. There's nothing in the removal code that specifies that the tribal ID number has to be on the petition, and it ends up being just sort of a gotcha that includes that it's like a landmine that would prevent petitions from ever being successful. So we don't believe that that is among the procedures that are being referred to. We read it as saying that the procedures are the procedures used by the registrar to review it. That's what it literally says. The registrar is to look at the petitions and verify the signatures using the same standards that she uses when she looks at election signatures. And that provision with respect to the ID numbers isn't part of that process. It's part of the petition creation process, the form creation process, which under the election code is a duty imposed on the election committee, not on the circulator of the petition. So we don't think that's relevant.
So I had one more question. So in trying to figure out what's going to carry the day today, the removal code references the board of directors. There's a lot of shalls, and so when we are doing constitutional amendments or we're doing referendums, the board of directors is 7. A majority is 7. So today, what's the number?
Simple.
I see nothing in here that requires a positive majority.
Because it references the board of directors shall. So does it say a simple?
I believe it's a simple majority.
Okay. Okay.
In any event, that's my opinion on that question, Aaron. The person with the authority to make parliamentary rulings, of course, is the chair,
Right.
subject to appeal to the board.
Right. Yeah. So again, it boils back to not having a fair and impartial judicial system, because these kind of decisions are going to be made by politicians. And the reason why I don't like removal is because I've survived them somehow or another. I survived them. I don't know if I'm going to have to tonight, because I see an item on the agenda that's probably going to lead that way, is because I was able to convince individual board members. But whether I was able to kiss somebody's butt sufficiently when people were making fair and objective decisions, politicians don't do that. That's not what politicians do. That's what courts do. And we don't have that remedy. We've never conferred jurisdiction to a court to make a fair and impartial decision. So the decision tonight will ultimately be a political one by politicians. Wherever you fall on that issue, that's a true statement. Okay. Denny, and then I'll ask without objection. Or Darcy. Oh, without objection, we have a member comment.
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to what Dolores has said about the communities that elected Rita, and they're showing no support for her removal. I'm sympathetic to it on the one hand, and I mean no disrespect to my elders when I say this, but on the other hand, I'm protective of my rights as a tribal citizen in general. And for me to sit here and to say that I support that only this smaller part of our tribe should be determining this issue, I can't support that. Because this is a disenfranchisement of my right as a tribal citizen in general. She is going to make rules. She has been making rules for our tribal community in general. That once she's elected, she's part of the larger body. I cannot support the larger body then not having a say in her removal or not.
Right.
So, thank you.
Okay. All right. I don't know how to say your name in Ojibwe. I'd like to hear it. You're next.
Good evening. First, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for anything you've done on behalf of every tribal member. When you work together for every tribal member, I appreciate it. I'm here today because I'm concerned about the health and well-being of our tribal citizens who have gone to dentists and physicians for care. I think that the process for hiring these people must be very lengthy, and it's not easy to find people to work in this cold climate, I'm sure. But I moved up to Unit 4 in July of last year. August, I went to get my teeth cleaned. I drove 2 hours to get hour and a half to get my teeth cleaned. I got there and they decided instead of doing what I wanted to do, they would put me in the computer system and look at every single tooth in my head and make a computer description of each. After that, the doctor came to me and said, here's the sheet. It had 12 things listed on it, and I dropped my jaw. He says, you look surprised. I said, yes, I am. I just went to the dentist in Metro Detroit 3 months ago. I had nothing wrong with my teeth. I just need them cleaned. So at that point, my intuition told me, this guy's wrong, very wrong. But I went back. And he had his plan, and he said, if you do nothing more, you have to get this one crown replaced. I said, okay. So I went in November to get the crown replaced, and should have done it. He spent, first of all, he gave me 5 shots in my mouth and numbed me. After a little while, he said, which portion of your mouth is getting numb first? I pointed to this because I couldn't speak. The crown was back here. This was the first area to get numb. So he proceeded to pull and pull and pull and pull, like my dad probably could have done with a pair of pliers in the garage, for 40 minutes, tugging on my jaw. And remember, I'm not here for myself because it's past. I'm here for the future of our citizens who may face something like this in the future, that just can't speak for themselves and get in a chair like that, and it's merciless. So he did that for 40 minutes, and finally he started sawing it off, and he took it off in pieces, and then he got a drill out, and he started drilling it, and then I could feel him drilling in the front of my mouth. I was like this. He said, what? I said, why are you drilling my front teeth? He said, I'm not what he wants. So he cut and drilled and drilled and cut, and then he said, we cannot save the tooth. He said, we have to pull the tooth. So by this point, I'm thinking of the boys from the Zone movie, The Nazi Dentist. I'm thinking this guy must hate Indians. And this was going through my head. I start crying in the chair. I look at the assistant, who's completely blasé. She's witnessing this whole thing. My concern is that the people who are assisting our medical people need to be able to speak up and say, I'm seeing something is not right. I'm seeing people being abused. This guy or this woman, whoever it may be, needs to be looked into because this is not right for our people. Just because the government pays for this or that doesn't mean we have to take it. If I go there and it's free, I don't have to take it if it's mistreatment. So anyway, he pulled the tooth. I was distraught. He insisted I have antibiotics and pain pills. I said I don't take drugs. So I ended up going to the waiting room, and there was a woman sitting next to me, and we started talking about our teeth. And she shared with me, I said to her, because she's waiting for a prescription also. I decided to get the antibiotic. I didn't want to have big problems. And I want to remind you too that bad dental practices can cause brain hemorrhages, strokes. Anybody drilling or moving things in your mouth can kill you. When we hire a dentist, it needs to be someone who knows what they're doing. So the woman I questioned, I said, well, what were you having done? She said, well, you know, I came here and I didn't have much wrong with my teeth, but before you know it, I got all my teeth pulled, and now I have to wear dentures. And you know, I was so distraught over what was happening. I didn't find out her name or anything. But I got home, and I didn't get home. I had to stay overnight there because I couldn't drive. I stayed in a motel. That's what I want to share today. I called the doctor. Got released. Well, they say he quit or he left. I hope he got fired. End of May. I did call the director of health, and he told me in January that I needed to speak to someone else. He wasn't the one to speak to. Well, I loaded on him on the phone anyway. I wanted him to hear from my mouth, not from anybody else's interpretation. So I told him everything that I could, and he gave me the name and number of the lady to talk to manage the health building in the other unit. I called her, left her a message, she never called me back. So then in January, end of January, a friend of mine in the tribe told me that they were doing a survey. Arbor Associates was doing a survey related to this dentist. I said, okay, I would call. So I called them up. It took me a long time to find the number. I called Arbor Associates. I said, I want to be part of this survey. Oh, you can't. It's random. I said, oh, so I'm the one that's abused, and I'm the one that starts this process, and I can't put this in your determination? No, you cannot. So I called the health center today, and I said, is he still there? No, he left in end of May. We're trying to get somebody else. So I wish you all good luck in finding someone who's going to treat the people right, and not just there to pull everyone's teeth to make a buck. And the other concern is for the assistant. I said, is she still there? I knew her name. Is she still there? Well, she's working here, but she's working in a different area. Well, if there's no dentist, she has to work in a different area. Well, people who see this abuse need to be able to call 1-800 number or talk to somebody and say, these people are in danger.
Okay, have you talked to our health director?
Have I talked to her?
Yeah, our health director is here. So if you could follow up with her so she can get some more specifics.
From where?
Our tribal health director, Bonnie Koffa's right there.
No, I am not.
Yeah, if you could
I
talk.
spoke to Tony Abramson, who listened on the phone and gave me Marlon Glassman's number.
Yeah.
And everything. I will talk to him.
Okay, Bonnie will follow up for sure, and then do a report back to the board so that we know that the follow-up happened.
Yeah, just be careful.
Okay. Okay, so we now have board issues, unless Judy, did you have any more, Judy? 'Cause I did cut you off and then I didn't cut anybody else off,
No,
so.
that's fine, I think I gave enough information.
Okay. Okay, so we will now do board issues. And DJ's first.
What do I have written there?
Reunification timeframe.
And I have one more.
Oh,
Payment stream related, I'm sorry.
Deborah.
I forgot to say one more thing. Because the tooth was pulled, my teeth are shifting, and I will need Invisalign on the bottom. My teeth are really shifting, it's really crazy. And, either he needs to pay, or, I don't know if he has nail fix. I'm not gonna.
Okay, we have to be careful when we talk about that part, but if you can follow up with Bonnie, yeah, she will.
I just wanna say that.
And you guys could talk right now if you want, because I don't think this
That's
is,
what I need to the side.
yeah. Yeah, out in the hall maybe. All right, Chris Levette. The 4 to 5, or yeah, the 4 to 6 time frame is membership issue, so, yeah, so you're not late.
Okay, the only thing that I had question about is that I know, that there was a lot of hard work and a lot of people out on the road to get the removal petitions going and stuff. And my question was kind of like part to do with who actually looked at the petitions? Is that like our enrollment? To say who, you know,
Enrollment,
they ended up with 168 and ended up with 130 some or something, you know, because so many were this, so many were that.
yeah, enrollment, what enrollment does is verify signatures. Actually, they don't even verify signatures. They check to make sure they're members. Yeah, registered voters.
Okay.
That's their only role.
So actually, who looked at all the petitions? Did any of these guys, or who's supposed to
I
do
don't
that?
think
Whose
we
job is that?
saw them.
Yeah, we don't know if they followed this.
Everybody got copies.
You get a copy of the signature?
Everybody, every single board member got a copy in the US mail. I did, certified. I signed
Yeah,
for it.
we don't
Well,
have signatures.
Somebody else signed.
Well, she asked if we signed it. We got it. We
No,
all got it
I was
certified.
actually wondering who, you know, is there like one main person in our tribe, or, you know,
Can John go through the process?
I know that was part of the, and I apologize, because I apparently didn't sign for mine, but I didn't know that that was part of the process even. That wasn't part of the process before, so I don't think we got them.
Can somebody tell us? Yes, we got them in the
Okay,
mail.
I remember when Catherine had to go through it. Yeah.
I
remember
didn't everybody
seeing-
get them in the mail?
Yep,
Yes.
Yeah.
I did
Can I
sign.
speak?
I have my.
Yeah.
I got it written down.
Okay, the secretary looks at them too, because when Catherine's came in, I had to take a look at them. So you know.
Are you talking about our secretary Joanne, or?
The board
That
secretary.
would be Bridget.
Bridget
wrote
Jones.
that down.
No, I didn't get them, they went right to her.
They went,
Exactly.
well, unless it changed, because I had to look at them, just so you know.
So you're saying you didn't get it? It was supposed to be handed in to Bridget, actually. That's
Well,
all it
I'm
was
just
done
kind
by.
of questioning, because I mean, like, I don't know, I mean, imagine if you guys all got them, you kind of had to look at them and glance at them. And I mean, there's just a few things where, you know, somebody's name was crossed out because they put it in the wrong thing, and then the right name was written in behind it. I mean, that's here.
It's all public now.
Some people printed in both places, where one place was supposed to be a written name, and below it, their printed name. Where their written name is supposed to be, some of it's blank, but they printed their name below it. Something to do with, wrong, address, and I guess the tribe's taking the blame for that one. One of the people that were out circulating had the wrong address. She put her correct address where she's living now. but the tribe actually has her own address on hand, and that was from over a year ago. So, why, I mean, the dates and the address and stuff aren't matching up. So why are we letting that go through? I mean, I can go on and on, where people signed back in May, sponsors went ahead and signed in July or June, I mean. So I don't understand this process of the petitions. I've never done it before, so I'm personally questioning it. I sat down and I've been going through it and highlighting things that I am seeing, things like I said, there's one right here where the name was crossed off, where the sponsor's signature is supposed to be, and then Linda had to re-sign it. So I don't understand this. I mean, why do they answer those questions? No, I'm talking to them. That's okay. This is what they're for. So I'm kind of questioning, this process, what's going on in it, you guys are gonna be so picky and ready to chop a hat. I think somebody better start looking at this a little more closely, because I think there's a lot of things on here that aren't right.
Okay, Lana, then Kim.
So we have all the facts. What was the process? Linda Rogers submitted it and handed it to our executive secretary. What happened from there? So just so and this is all documented, so we'll all hear it at the same time, because that's a good question.
I'd like to know. I'm with you. Mm-hmm.
John, be prepared.
Who can answer? It is a good question, because I didn't hear anything until I got him in the mail. So
are we answering that question, or we're going to new questions? Denise is on the list.
Can we answer that question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I just want to get on the list.
All right.
So they get handed to the secretary, and secretary is defined by the Act as the tribal recording secretary and staff working under the tribal secretary's direction. So Joanne has them, and then pursuant to the code, she provides them to the registrar. The registrar reviews the signatures under the same procedures that she uses for reviewing signatures on election petitions. She filed a written report with the board in which she determined that there are 38 petitions, 163 signatures. That of the 163 signatures, 3 are from persons not registered to vote, and therefore were not counted. 28 were from persons who were registered but whose addresses differed from that on file. Those were not counted. 132 were from persons who are registered voters whose addresses do conform to the addresses on file. As you indicated, there was initially a question about one of the circulators whose address initially was thought not to match, but when the registrar went back and looked, she realized that the person had in fact filed a change of address at the time she registered her child many, many months ago, back in November, and that somehow that changed address should have been entered into the registrar's system.
Point of information, clarity, is what you presented before and what the registrar clarified before is that she did not submit a change of address. She registered her child with her current address, but there's a very specific thing with enrollment with your address change.
Let me be more specific. The individual claimed that she filed a change of address a year ago and also registered her child in November. The registrar could not confirm the year ago change of address form, but did confirm the child's registration and concluded that it was her mistake, the registrar's mistake, that address should have been populated to the records at that time and wasn't. So in light of that, she submitted a supplemental letter to the board indicating that she did not find a problem with that particular address. So then finally,
A lot of people make claims.
Wait, I beg your pardon?
A lot of people make claims.
There's an order.
So the second, if you want me to describe what's happened. So that report was submitted to the board along with the registrar's supplemental letter with respect to that other signature. At that point, the board then, and all of the petitions, every board member, the accused, and the circulator received a package with all of the copies of all of the petitions. That material was considered within 15 days by this board. This board directed that it wanted an outside, an opinion from an outside attorney. That was obtained shortly before the last meeting, not in time to put this on the agenda. The board now has that opinion. With respect to the specifics of the signatures, the code is very clear, and Mr. Green's opinion addresses this, that challenges to the signatures are supposed to be made by motion to the hearing officer. This board is really empowered to make a very limited preliminary decision about whether the petition is facially sufficient on its face, whether it states a removable offense, whether there's facially sufficient signatures. Any more depth challenge of the code is supposed to be made by the hearing process, not by this board. Having said that, I do not disagree with the chairperson's statement earlier that each of you will be voting, I presume, and that if you disagree with any of this, or if your opinion is different, it certainly can inform your vote. But Mr. Green's opinion, as you know, was that the board's authority is limited, and that it is a very preliminary decision on the facial validity, and if that exists, then the matter is to go through the hearing process.
I'm done, thank you.
Okay, Kim. Okay, I did go through them name for name, and I had some concerns too, but after all benefit of the doubt, and I just took off the 3 that were not registered because that didn't show on here, there was still 111 signatures. In my mind, you know, going through, because I had some that were the dates I had a concern with. There were some with no dates. Some were signed after the circulator had taken them around and she dated it. They were signed after that date. And then I took off the 3 he just said the not registered ones. So I ended up with 111, you know, but I'm sure there's more issues than what I saw on them, so. But I did sit down and go through every one, looked at it, and there was one that didn't even have a circulator at the top.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, that was when I just didn't even look at it. Took that right out right away.
I'm just kind of highlighting a few things I was seeing, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, so really, as everybody sat down and kind of looked at it, and know what we're looking at, and petitions were done correctly, and if they weren't, then not. You know, I mean, just like, I understand that the first, like the attorney said, the unemployment last year, the address being changed, blah, blah. But then she's underneath one address this year, but it's supposed to be an address from last year that never did get changed. So where does that put us at that? I mean, is that just something like, oh, okay, well, we screwed up and that's okay? Because I mean, this is a serious, this is something to take seriously, you know? So we better start questioning, and really looking to see how many groups there is really in it. I'm not, I said, these people worked hard to put these things out. You know, I don't doubt that a bit. I know that they've been out there, even pumping the roads and stuff. So, I'm questioning that. Because a lot of those signatures, I mean, for one person, as far as I'm concerned, are no good. That's the way I look at it. That's my opinion. So I think people better kind of, before you guys make a decision, I think you better really look at something that's legal. Legal and binding, right here.
Okay, Denise, DJ, Kathy, Darcy.
Right, and my question is because Bridget, who is the board secretary, was supposed to be handed into Bridget, the board secretary. Because in the past, Kathy, there was some petitions that come forward and it had to be handed in. We had a legal opinion that had to be given to Kathy. Otherwise, it wasn't official. And so Bridget just said she didn't review it, she didn't receive it, she got it the same time all of us got it. So actually that's very questionable right there.
And as far as the signatures, out of those 132 signatures with valid addresses that Julie said, there were 10 pages of the petition with the person that was questionable, who was a registered person to vote according to her, but whose address on the petition differed from the address on file. So if you took 38 of those from 132, you're down to 94 signatures. So, you know, that doesn't pass the stink test to me. And another reason is the only way they knew to go in there and ask for a change in the address, it didn't come from Julie. It came from because our legal department released a document that was given to him from Rita, actually, and he sent it out to the petitioner, which is very questionable because that's where they got the information to go forward and ask for the address to be changed. So that's, you know, that just doesn't pass the stink test to me, because that is very questionable on the petition signatures, whether the petition is even valid for those reasons.
Point of information on that. Can you jumped up, is that? Okay, can you, that's a point of information.
So with all due respect, with all due respect to Director Glyptis, I was handed a document that purported to be a legal document raising a series of legal challenges to the petition process. Those decisions are conferred by the code, initially on this body, and then ultimately on a hearing body. Due process requires that there not be ex parte communications. No one is allowed to communicate with the decision-making body without that being shared with all the other parties. I don't have a legal role in this process other than as a legal advisor to you in interpreting the code. I don't have a role. I'm not a decision maker in this process. I view my job as to try to guide the process and make sure that we are following the law that this board and the citizens of the tribe have adopted to the Constitution and code. So when that document was filed with me, I don't have an attorney-client relationship with individual board members. I represent the tribe. So that document was filed with me, and I understood it to be a legal written challenge to the process, which needed to be supplied to the decision-making body, that is the board, and to the parties who are participating before the board. And I stand by that decision. And I'm sorry if there was some misunderstanding about it. It was not marked confidential. If it had been, I would have returned it, frankly, because it would have been inappropriate for me to be giving direct advice on, and I haven't given Linda legal advice on this either, in spite of assertions that may have been made. I have answered questions put to me by this board and by the various participants, and I've tried to explain the process as best I understand it. But I'm not trying to take an advocacy role in any way.
So any correspondence or whatever back and forth between you and Linda, phone call conversations and face-to-face, whatever has been shared with Rita then?
I think there's been a suggestion that I had a conversation with Ms. Rogers after the last meeting, and that's true. She left the room, and someone at this table, and I honestly can't remember who, one of the directors said she thought that Linda Rogers didn't quite understand what had happened in the board process, and asked me if I would go out and explain it to her.
Absolutely.
I went out.
Yep.
And I was not giving her guidance on how to do this. I was explaining to her that the board had decided to refer the legal question for advice to an outside attorney. Director Glyptis came up while we were having that conversation, and I turned to Director Glyptis and said, "Do you have any questions?"
You did say that too much right there.
And Linda didn't realize what would happen next, and I asked John to go out there and explain to her what would happen next. So.
All right, so what's the answer on not handing the petition into Bridget Sorensen, the board secretary, because they made a big issue of it before that Kathy Abramson had to receive as the board secretary the petition had to be handed to her before it's reviewed.
You just read it.
I just read it, and I didn't bring it up with me, but irrespective of what may have happened the prior times, and I have no problem with the board's elected official secretary getting a copy of this and involving that person in the process. That may be prudent, that may be fine, but what the code says is that it goes to the secretary, and it defines secretary as the recording secretary and staff under the board secretary. That's what the code says.
That's not
You're mixing the referendum.
Yeah, that's not so, because I know the opinion that we had before, and Kathy Abramson had to receive it in her hand, and she had to review it.
There may be, you're right, there may be a difference, I could pull the referendum code and see if that's different. But in this case, secretary is specifically defined as the recording
But
secretary.
to be clear, I was
Okay,
secretary one time. the next
DJ's next.
Referendum says secretary. Meeting board says.
Thank you.
Wait, John. Wait, John. He's grabbing the code.
I'm getting my crib sheets. I'm getting old, I need help.
Public forum now. Yep. This is the 5-minute public forum.
There's nobody else. Is there any other membership on the list? The board has the prerogative to keep talking ad nauseum if they want.
Well,
It happens all the time.
I want a break.
Go ahead. Not cutting you off.
No. You said okay, they said there was a person with the wrong address, right? Circulator with the wrong address, right?
DJ, they can't hear you.
There
Well,
was,
there's a person with the wrong address, right? Circulator, correct?
the registrar initially, in her initial report, reported that one of the circulators had an incorrect address, that her address on the petitions differed from what she had in her records. That person subsequently contacted her and had her go back, and she looked at her records, and she sent you all, prior to the meeting, a supplemental letter delivered by email to all of you, stating that it was the registrar's mistake and that the registrar's records should have been corrected in November when this individual filed, registered her
Right,
child.
and Aaron had discussed that a little bit at nauseam, right? A little bit, but, so, that person was eligible to vote at the time they circulated the petition, correct? They lived in the
It
unit,
appears so.
but they weren't registered to vote.
They were registered to vote, yes.
No, they were eligible. They didn't register to vote until the date that they actually had the actual address, correct?
That was the child. They registered the child in November. The circulator was.
Well, until your address is correct, you're not registered, right?
Well, actually, that's not what the election code says.
Is that, I'm asking the question because you brought it up.
Well, actually, there's a very interesting provision of the election code.
There's a reason.
The election code, section 10.1095 says, quote, once a member has registered, the member's registration status is permanent.
There you go.
And shall not change, subject to subsection 4 and subsection 6. 4 says that you do lose your membership if you move out of a unit. 6, I'm sorry, that's 6. 4 says that non-resident members have to select the unit in which they will participate and fill out a form. With those two exceptions, once you are registered, you're registered, automatically registered within the election unit once you maintain registry, and once registered, your status is permanent. That's the language of the code.
Kathy's next.
You're talking about, that's all.
I'll wait, I'll wait until we talk about it.
Darcy. Okay, Darcy.
You better say it. I don't think she heard you.
I didn't hear you. Okay.
Next.
All right, so that was that was Chris's issue
Yeah.
that we talked a lot about. We don't have any other membership issues, so we go to the board issues. We can at least start them. Just so nobody flips out later, because I know it happens when I leave early. I do plan to leave the meeting probably, I don't know, like 7:30 or whatever, because I've got to drive to Manistee tonight. That's about 5 or 6 hours. Just so you know ahead of time. So the thing is, when you bring up board issues, you have all week to bring issues to the administration, to Christine. You don't believe I'm going to follow up, you can bring them to Christine. It doesn't only have to happen in this forum, so.
Say it a little bit, I want to leave it.
Yeah. Okay, DJ, you're first.
No one's gonna give you grief about that.
I do get it. Yeah, I heard about it last time.
You wanna do that one and close afterwards?
I don't know what it is, so if you want, yeah.
That's pretty, the reunification, correct?
Yeah.
We have an issue with the reunification process for parents and their children through the courts and ACFS. the process seems to be taking longer than necessary. I think the conversation should occur probably in closed session and with some follow-up next week with staff. Since you have cases where people are awarded their children back and then it's 6 to 8 months later and they still don't have their children back. So, I don't know.
It's a child welfare issue.
Yes, so we should have that discussion closed and maybe have some conversations later, because I don't know what, I mean, if you win and you get your kids back, you should get your kids back. You shouldn't have to wait 8, 9 months to get them back.
Okay.
I would say it's a court issue.
Well, that's what I said. My question is more on the reunification process, how long it is, what it is, and that's, you know, and Richard and I have talked about this, others have talked about it. It's just a matter of, I think, I'm trying to tiptoe the sensitivity on it.
Right, so we'll have to
In
discuss
closed
it in
session,
closed
I think.
session.
Because it's parents and kids and, yeah.
Okay. Next would be Kim.
Should mine be enclosed? It's a employment issue.
No, if you can ask it on the policy level, I think it would be okay.
Okay, when we sit in the appeals, we make decisions on whether to give people the vacation time if they're terminated. And I don't think that's something we should be deciding as an appeal board. In my mind, I'm like, they earned it, it's theirs, but some people get it, some people don't. And it's not right, it should be the same across the board. We should be making that decision, so. And I saw Steve here earlier, but I don't see him now. Did we do the elimination policy already? Or is that one of the ones coming up, Brenda, do you know?
It is one of the ones coming up.
Okay, well, we will do it for that then, because I have problems with that, about that when I sit in on those appeals.
I think what we did was, 97, we gave broad authority to the appeal board to be able to rectify if the termination wasn't appropriate. So the appeal board does have great latitude. And we have talked about narrowing that because I think it's happenstance, it's slipshod, depending on which board members hear it, if they like you, if they agree with you, you know, and there's no standard for it. It's all discretionary.
That's what she's talking about making.
Point, if I'm not mistaken, our code says that they're fired, they ain't get their vacation, period.
Correct.
The only chance they got is at the appeal board. They get their vacation.
It depends on, right,
Yeah,
it just depends on who's sitting.
Yeah, you're right. That's why, again, politicians shouldn't be making those kind of decisions. Because if you support them in a campaign, if they like you, you probably got a greater chance of getting your vacation back.
Usually we deal with people outside our unit.
Absolutely, that's how it works. That's why I don't sit on
They
those.
try to stitch them up so that we're not doing that.
DJ.
It's earned income, but the law basically says that unless it's in your policy, you don't have to pay it out. And our policy says we don't pay it out.
Then we
But
make that decision.
then if our policy says you don't pay it out, then the appeal board doesn't have the authority to violate policy.
If they are no longer termed.
No, I'm saying, if they're termed, they don't have the authority to usurp policy, is what I'm saying.
I see.
They have certain authority, you gave them all kinds of stuff, but they don't have the authority to break policy.
If
If the policy says you can't do it,
wait,
then they can't do it.
if the appeal board overturns and they're no longer terminated,
That's fine.
then they get reinstated.
But they wouldn't get their vacation pay.
Yes, you
They'd have to be
would.
termed.
Yes, you
I'm
would.
saying.
Because if you're not termed,
Well, I'm
you're not
talking
ineligible
about
to get
cash
your
flow.
vacation.
Cash
So if the termination's upheld, I don't think the appeal board has the authority to give the vacation.
That's what I'm talking
Okay, I don't think they have that authority.
Then you're saying the appeal board don't have the authority to let them get unemployment.
But
That's
the-
also in
but
there.
The appeal board does not have the authority to violate policy.
That's what I'm saying.
They don't.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
By giving them back their job, you're violating policy.
No, you're not. The appeal, okay, now I'll defend it. The appeal process as it exists, which should not be done by politicians, but as it exists is to interpret whether or not the policy was followed. That's the only thing they're supposed to be doing. Not if they like the person, if they're related, if they coached them how to do their appeal beforehand. We know all that's happening. And we all look at each other like we don't know that's happening. We know it happens.
I don't sit on them, so don't look at me.
So the only thing they should be doing, and I helped to push to get this appeal procedure in place, is to interpret whether or not policy was followed. Not if you feel sorry for the person, not if the manager did it this way for another employee. If they were fired for 3 days, no call, no show, the appeal board isn't there to say, we feel sorry for them, so we're gonna put them back. If they got termed for 3 days, no call, no show, and it can be verified, the appeal board should not have anything to do to overturn that decision.
Oh, we can discuss this for hours,
Okay.
and I'm gonna throw something at you you're gonna be shocked at.
Can we have this at a workshop?
Yes.
Yes, can we have a recess
For
10 minutes?
Can that workshop be to actually put in that people actually get their earned vacation time, because it is earned income, and they should actually get what they earn?
Okay, well,
That would change a policy.
How about a
That's
recess?
right, yeah.
can I briefly just state then, on that, is the policy review committee has been talking about that? And the downside of that is that people aren't leaving their notice. What's the incentive for people to leave a notice then? And they just come in tomorrow and say, I'm out of here, and you're gonna get your vacation anyway. So.
Say you're gonna get it in a timely manner.
Oh,
You'll get it, but you're not gonna get it in a timely manner.
Let's write that down as part of the workshop.
so, okay, yep, we have about 10 minutes. If you could be back, we'll start promptly at 6. If we don't have quorum, we will adjourn the meeting.
Then we can.
What?